How's it going, wrestling fans? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Wrestle Report, episode 20. Hit the big 2-0 with Phil and Don. I am Phil.
I'm Don.
We are less than 24 hours removed from AEW Revolution, a show that ended not with a bang, but with a whimper. More on that later, though. We will get through the whole show here, but before we get to that point, we originally were going to do an episode on Thursday reacting to Shaq's AEW in-ring debut. Stuff got in the way. That's on me. We didn't get the episode out, but I didn't want the news to pass us by. I know it's only been a couple of days. So before we get to Revolution, we are going to talk about Shaq's AEW debut on Dynamite, teaming in this tag match against, Cody and Red Velvet. First thing I want to say on that was they opened the show with it. And at first I didn't love that idea. And, her and Jane came out first, and then, or him and Jane came out first, Cody and Red Velvet came out first, and then Shaq was the last person in the match. What I'm trying to say was for the entrance there. At first I thought they needed to do it like at the top of the hour or something to like entice people to stay. But I guess if you really hit people like in the face with Shaq in the beginning, people that wouldn't normally watch the show might decide to like stick around, because not to jump things, but immediately after the Shaq match, they had like Ray Phoenix and Pac come out and destroy some jobbers, and they just like they flew around the ring, and they like, even if you were just tuning in for Shaq, you might have stayed in like, oh, look at this dude's in a mask, this guy's flying around everywhere, like it might have enticed you to stay. So I wasn't for it in the beginning, but the more I think about it, I think opening the show with this was actually the right move.
Yeah, that was the smartest thing to do. And I saw the ratings for the first hour, or just for that match. Actually, it was in the million. It was it hit over 1 million. So that was the smartest thing to do. And then going right to two other good guys in Pac and Ray Phoenix, squashing those guys. That was perfect.
This show really, it started so hot that of course there was going to be a natural like let down, like lower of significance and just like overall flow of the show. This show went from like the mass appeal of Shaq to like at the very end, like you only are going to know what's going on if you're a diehard fan. Like it literally like went like this down the board, because the main event was like the Dark Order situation, which you're really only going to be attached to those guys if you've been watching AEW basically since it started. So it went from the mass appeal of Shaq down to like the niche of the Dark Order that you really only are going to know if there's like AEW fans. So like normally you wouldn't structure a show like this, and I don't think they ever have before, but this was a circumstance that probably merits shifting your show around like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So to jump into the match itself, I will say this about Shaq: you can tell that he took this seriously, even when he kind of was playing with Cody. It was in like a mocking, like in the ring way, not like I don't respect what we're doing here type of thing. Cody even said like this will be a match with a lock. We will be locking up. We will be doing moves and everything. And they start out with some basic stuff with Shaq. The chops he gave Cody, at least that first one, you could tell he lightened up just a tad on the second and third, but JR used to say like chops that'll stop your heart. That first one I legit thought had a chance of doing that. And I was kind of right on the aspect of the females were going to be the ones, Jade Cargill and Red Velvet were going to be who had the finish, which ended up being correct. Cody slammed Shaq, which, it didn't look amazing, but he was never going to try to like hold him up for a while and slam him. Like it was meant to be quick. We said like over under 3 for the bumps. You counted 2, I believe, right? Is what ended up happening.
Yeah, it was that slam and Cody slamming him through the table,
which I said I think counts as 2 bumps, so that puts him right. Was 2 tables. The few moves that Shaq actually did, I remember a back body drop, which is a perfect move for him, and he hit the Brody Lee inspired power bomb. He even gave him the shout out, and like I thought that was cool. It took me a minute to get. I thought it was just Shaq like flexing, but he was trying to do the Brody Lee mannerisms with that. So respect to him for doing that. This whole match, I think it was like roughly 12 minutes, and let's say 7 of it was maybe the Shaq and Cody stuff, which is a respectable amount of time. Of course, the table spot comes. I think it worked out well. Cody pokes him in the eye. It explains why Shaq is just standing on the apron like that. That high cross body to clear all the ropes go into Shaq and go through the table. I think it worked out well. It was a little fringy setting up the tables because the ladies just kind of started setting up the tables for no reason. But once they were there, they kind of went a few extra minutes. So you almost forgot they were there until Cody goes over. And of course, that clip has been everywhere. Every sports outlet has seen, Shaq go through the table. And that was definitely not something I expected. If anything, I expected him to maybe like choke slam Cody through some tables. If you'd have told me what's the table spot going to be, I would have said something like that. Or even a press slam right through the timekeeper's table. It's kind of like the Spanish announce table of AEW. It gets a lot of attacks like that. But no, for Shaq to take that bump and he just kind of like was knocked out cold. Everyone's seen the sleeping Shaq meme by now, I'm sure. And then the ladies were left in the ring to finish it off, and Jade, hit basically the Beth Phoenix finisher to win the match. And I think everybody here looked pretty good, considering, you had two very inexperienced females, and you have Shaq, which we've established maybe has like a year's worth of training over like a 10-year span. And then you got Cody, and Cody is not at 100%. He has rotator cuff issues right now and a bunch of other things. So overall, I think this worked out as much as you would have wanted it to. A little disappointing that they didn't crack 1 million for the entire show. You mentioned they did crack 1 million for this segment, which doesn't shock me at all. They hit like 934K for the whole show. Because like I said, as the show went on, it became more and more of a diehard story. So like they could have maybe tailored the whole show around a casual fan, but it's hard to do that when you're setting up for your pay-per-view. So you still have to get all your storylines in there. But overall, I give this maybe not an A+, but I give this a solid A for effort from Shaq and everyone involved. I think this went off without a hitch, really.
Oh yeah, it was a great match. I enjoyed it. It took my attention away from NXT, just because I really wanted to see what Shaq would do. I think that's what everyone really wanted to see. I think that's the reason why it cracked over 1 million. It was really good. I like Cargo Jade.
Jade,
yeah. I like her. She got a great look. She looks ripped, and she picked up Red Velvet with ease.
and I didn't catch this. I didn't know this about her. I knew she was a college basketball player prior to this. Apparently, she played at Jacksonville University, which would make sense why she was a local person to come check out. So that was interesting there. People were dogging on her about every other move she has to like flex or whatever, and she got back at people on Twitter. She's like, look, if you looked like me, you'd be flexing all the time too. So it's like, all right, fair enough. That worked out. The one, like I said, the table, the setting up of the tables got a little cringy just because it took forever to the point where a ref almost had to help. And then you also, if you didn't know what he was doing, it wouldn't have bothered you, but I did, so it kind of did. QT Marshall was around the ring as essentially like a coach match. Like he was there kind of giving assistance when needed. He was just kind of like roaming around. He was ducked under too, so you weren't really supposed to see him. But I think when it came to the table spot was one of the one times you saw him on camera. So I understand why. Like I said, you got very inexperienced people in this match. But seeing QT there kind of like shouting out orders throughout the match took me out of it for a second. But overall, they got through it, and it's something that's going to be very memorable. This is a more home run than like bringing in Mike Tyson was, I would say. I think this was an overall better use of a celebrity spot.
Oh yeah, definitely better than Snoop 10 times.
Yeah,
unfortunately. Sorry, Snoop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Snoop will be back though, because he's on the Go Big show.
Yeah,
There'll be a reason to bring him back, and he'll redeem him. Maybe he'll do like a leg drop or something. He can't really fuck up. He can just like, instead of the worst splash in recorded human history. So yeah, overall the Shaq thing, I gotta label it a success. I mean, it wasn't a 5-star match. It was never gonna be. Is it the best celebrity match ever? No, I just honestly, that's a Pat McAfee accolade that he's gonna have for a very long time. And before that, for me, it was when D'Angelo Williams had a match in Impact, which I would definitely go check that out. It was a tag team match. It was more built around his hot tag. He just had this legendary like 45-second hot tag, but he also messed up a splash in his match that came off of a table. He almost missed the table completely. They had to cover it up by, I think he was like teaming with Bubba Ray or somebody, and Bubba Ray had to just grab Eli Drake off the table and like powerbomb him real quick because he missed the table. So like, aside from that, that was always prior to Pat McAfee, that was my greatest athlete, not wrestler athlete in a match thing. So this probably passes that up because Shaq didn't have any blaring issues. So I think the D'Angelo Williams thing is now third. This is second. And Pat McAfee, both of his matches, obviously more so the first one. I mean, Pat even tweeted, my first match was 25 straight minutes, one-on-one, no gimmicks. And he's right. I think he deserves to, pat himself on the back in comparison to what all these other guys are doing. Stephen Amell match was pretty good too against Cody and then Christopher Daniels too at All Out. So that deserves like honorable mention, I would say, for celebrity matches. Quick top three. I would be remiss before we jump to the Revolution pay-per-view about another performance on that Dynamite. Tully Blanchard's first match since 2007 and his first one on broadcast TV since 1998. Tully Blanchard with his match with FTR, the six-man tag against Jurassic Express. He didn't do much, but what he did, man, did it stick. And the one thing I wanted to see was his slingshot suplex. And he hit it on Marco Stunt, which just it made it even funnier. I think that he did that. I would have liked, obviously, he couldn't do it to like Luchasaurus or anything, but maybe doing it to Jungle Boy would have worked out. But I think just to make sure he didn't hurt himself doing it, that was great. He hit a few other moves, took like a bump, like a bump and a half, sort of. And then they hit the Goodnight Express, and he actually, tucks the pile driver and pins Luchasaurus, which I got a huge pop out of. They came out with the old NWA tag team belts, and he had his, I think it was the United States, the old NWA United States title belt on him. And J.J. Dillon was there. And then after the match, Arn is clapping from the rampway and throws up the Four Horsemen. And as the diehard, that was more important than the Shaq thing. I got a bigger pop out of this. And the fact they happened on the same show was pretty awesome to me.
That is pretty cool. I didn't catch that part. I don't know. I don't know how I missed that. But
so the Sean Spears thing, which I just remembered, he came out. He was like a cameraman or whatever, and they're all in the ring like hugging. And Arn comes out of the babyface tunnel. He doesn't even come all the way out of the tunnel. He's just staring at him from the tunnel, and they all kind of notice he's there, and he just kind of like smirks and throws up the four and then leaves. So like it was a very quick thing. I could see how you would have missed it. But no, that was just self-serving. Is anything. If you were like a more wrestling purist and you were like, I don't care about this, Shaq trying to wrestle, like it was your reward for sitting through that, which I was fine with both of them. They kind of hit they made me pop for two different reasons. And for them to both be on the same show, I thought was awesome.
That is pretty dope. It's like that. It couldn't been all of them, Right.
I mean, you never know. I mean, there's still a chance that, Cody is managed by Arn and maybe eventually they all, come together and everything. And, they've flat out said they're not going to, if they ever do anything, they're not going to call it the Four Horsemen because that would just put expectations on it that don't need to be there. But FTR said, like, we're down to do a group and just make it our own type of group. Like, you don't call it the Four Horsemen, you call it something else. I mean, if a group of guys got together in WWE and called themselves like Evolution 2.0, like that's trying to set yourself up for failure. But when you come out and name yourself the Hurt Business, right? That works out great because in a way it's the same gimmick. You got the suits, you got the trying to show off. They don't really go for the past, present, future thing, but they'd have the pieces in place to do that because you got MVP, you got Lashley as the current, and then someone like Cedric is like the future. He could be like the Randy Orton of that group, but luckily they didn't go that route. They went their own route, and that's why the Hurt Business is great. Just wanted to throw my weekly time to mention how much I love the Hurt Business. I guess I found. But yeah, so again, we didn't get that on our show that we were going to do between, last show and now. So we just wanted to throw that out there. Shaq did great. Tully did awesome. Obviously, I don't want to see that a whole bunch. If it happens one more time this year, I'd be okay with it, given the right circumstances with Tully. But other than that, let him keep doing what he's doing. He did just enough to prove that he could still go, and that's all he probably wanted to do. So, I'm good keeping it. And he might take a bump or two as a manager, but I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. You don't need to see it all the time. Once a year is cool. I'm cool with one more, like you said too. But I'd rather him just continue being a manager, just because his age and still we got a pandemic going on, man. To be honest with you, it's really risky being out there.
Yeah, that's
already.
True.
So
I mean, he seems to be relatively healthy. I honestly and I don't get on my high horse about this stuff, and not that you just did either, but I'm more concerned about Jake Roberts because his health is has always been shaky, really. Tully, from what I understand, because he left the wrestling business for about 20 years. He was like he recouped as much as you can recoup in his older age. So like obviously Jake never needs to step in the ring in like an official capacity ever again, but he did take a bump on the pay-per-view, which I guess we'll mention, but like, yeah, I mean, you definitely got to be smart about this. And to be fair, I think they have, and I don't think they'll abuse, Tully getting in the ring or anything. It wouldn't be special. This was special. This will be remembered when they make the top 100 moments in Dynamite history. When it's like a 5-year anniversary, this needs to be on it because it's that memorable.
Oh yeah,
Tully getting in the ring like that,
Yeah, definitely.
So we will now jump to AEW Revolution, which was an 8:00 start, went to about 11:30, and we kind of had before we can get to the show. I just want to talk about it as a whole. We talked about it because we worked a basketball game on Saturday together, and you had mentioned like we've been praising WWE for these shorter shows, being over at 9:30 to 10 o'clock, and this going to 11:30. I There's spots in this show that you could have cut out. And I'll probably point out a few of those. There's not a bunch. It's not like a bunch of fluff on this show, but you could have easily shaved a half an hour out of this show, I think. But still a very long show. But the point that I made when we were talking about this is AEW does 4 pay-per-views a year. WWE does like 15. So there's no reason that their shows couldn't be shorter. And it's almost 2 different pay-per-view models. Like, do you want a super show 4 times a year, or do you want a casual pay-per-view every month that we could probably run for 2.5 to 3 hours at most? It's just 2 different ways of looking at it, I think. But I wouldn't have hated this to be a little shorter, but it did. I wasn't just sitting there like waiting for it to be over because there was too much good shit going on for that to be the case. But I think 11 should be what they're aiming for. I think if you go 11:15 even, but like once you hit 11:30, I don't think you necessarily need. And there's one match in particular that didn't need to be on the show at all, and there's other ones that you could have taken a few minutes from. But overall, 11:30 is kind of my limit. I don't think maybe like All Out. If you want All Out to be this like 5-hour thing, started earlier then, started at 7, not 8. But that's really the only one. I mean, Revolution and Full Gear should be your B pay-per-views, and then instead of having a big 4, you have a big 2 with Double or Nothing and All Out. But yeah, not a lot of fluff on this show, but there was enough that it was noticeable, I think. But yeah, like I said, there's one match in particular that I would cut out completely, and then there's other things I would have taken 2-3 minutes from here or there, and I would have evened everything back out. So it wasn't a huge, waste of space or anything, but I think it could have been cleaned up a little tighter. First match on the show, great way to start it. You ever notice like back in the day, if someone was like the curtain jerker, as they would call it, like the opening match spot used to be like, you didn't want to be that guy. And now guys almost like fight to want that spot. Like you want that first match on the show. And proof right here, one of the more compelling matches, the AEW World Tag Team title match, Inner Circle versus the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho and MJF. This match was great. It was the perfect one to start this off. It was essentially like when Nitro used to start with the cruiserweights, not that everyone in this match is a cruiserweight or anything, but this was very back and forth. And there was 2 distinct times that I thought the Inner Circle were going to win. There was one, they kind of countered the Meltzer driver, and when he had him in the tombstone position, Jericho tried to like roll through it and get a pin. And then Wardlow hit one of the Bucks with a bat, and then the Heat Seeker pile driver from MJF. Then they happened within like a minute of each other. But either one of those would have been perfect finishes. It kind of went off. AEW does every once in a while. They pass up a great finish for a good finish. It's like, yeah, that was cool, but 30 seconds ago, like that would have been the more impactful thing. Had the Inner Circle won a third, weird way, I would have felt that way. But the Bucks did end up retaining, which my whole prediction of Sammy Guevara coming back to help, the Inner Circle, he never really left, blah, blah, blah. And I guess that was all, conspiracy theories on me because none of that happened. He wasn't even really mentioned on this show. So be it. But overall, just great opening match. I did find myself rooting for the Inner Circle to win because I think that dynamic would be crazy. It would just be very interesting. And I think the Bucks are in the middle of this Kenny Omega, the Good Brothers. Like, even if they didn't have their belts right now, they have other like avenues in their stories to be like exploring. So I was a little surprised they didn't lose the belts here, but just overall great match to see.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised that they didn't lose. I was like expecting them to win. Or I'm sorry, I was expecting the Inner Circle to win.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like it was time for the Young Bucks to lose it. To be honest with you, the Young Bucks don't need the title. To be honest with you, man, they're relevant enough. They don't need it. I'd rather see some of these up and comers tag teams, and so I'm hoping like what comes up next later on in the show. I'm excited for that match. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be a great match. But I'd rather than the Young Bucks not be the champs.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. They don't need them. I think now that they've been champs, when they drop them, it's not going to be a big deal. Because it was weird when they had never been, people consider them the best tag team wrestling, and they haven't even been the champions in their own company. So that was this weird like elephant in the room. But now that they've won them, if they lose them to some heels like the Inner Circle in some cheap way, and then they kind of get distracted and go off on this other feud, it'll be fine. So, whenever it comes, maybe it'll be the team that we're going to talk about next. Maybe something happens with the Good Brothers, or, Tonga and Tonga Loa show up from New Japan with a bone to pick. Like, there's a million ways that they can drop the belts, and it'll be fine. You're right. When they do eventually do it, they're not going to feel like out of place or anything. They're too legit, even without the belts. And their next challengers, we did find out. This, and just real quick, I'll keep tabs on this too. 17-minute match. Could you take a minute or two away? Sure, but like this match didn't feel that it went too long. There was just finishes that I thought would have made more impactful finishes than the one they have.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
But the Bucks won on the best finish that their offense created, whereas if the Inner Circle won, one of those two would have been the ones that I described earlier. So overall, I mean, 17-minute opener for the tag time, that's perfect. Like, you can't really gauge anything else off of that. The next up is the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. And I don't know, I've talked about my love for Battle Royals, Royal Rumbles. How nobody ever thought of a tag team Royal Rumble before? Because that's what's called a spade. That's exactly what this is. Just beautiful, perfect. I hope they do this every year at Revolution. Or Double or Nothing or whatever, because it does have casino in the name. But just there's a lot of teams in here. I'm not even going to talk about the match specifically too much, but I think this went off great. There was a QT Marshall dumped out the Gun Club when they're all technically in the Nightmare family. Dustin got in his face and he just said, "Screw you," and hopped over the ropes and left. Like, and I think we've talked about this before, feuds used to start just because person A eliminated person B in the Royal Rumble. And this established, that happened. So maybe the Gun Club are going to fight the Natural Nightmares or QT, when storylines can spring out of a battle royal, I feel like that's how the battle royal is meant to do two things. One, elevate the winner, and two, create stories of the people that got eliminated. So this one, I think, is actually going to do that. There was plenty of other, things that happened throughout. Ray Phoenix ended up winning for his team. Do you like if both guys on a team have to get eliminated? Because I prefer it more than if one gets eliminated, the partner just has to, okay, and then just like leave the ring. So I like how both teams have to get dumped out. Both guys of the team have to get dumped out.
I actually like that part that both teams had to get out, both partners had to get out. I thought that was pretty cool, just because you could get that dynamic of, oh man, say there was six people left in the match, and there was actually six different teams.
Yeah,
that would just make it more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of one partner, my partner gets out, that means I got to get out too. So I do like that dynamic of you're able to, if your partner gets thrown out, you're still in the match, you gotta get thrown out as well.
Which I think the final four was the Death Triangle, Jungle Boy, and I forget the four. So out of the four,
it was John Silver.
It was John. Yeah, that's who I was rooting for the whole time. I was like, man, if they don't need to win the titles necessarily, but like just the pop of them winning the Rumble, let's call it, like that would have been great. But yeah, you had two guys from one team and then one and one. And then when Pac got eliminated, it came down to, I think Silver might have been actually the first one out. But like, if they would have maybe flipped that, you'd have three guys. The end would have felt like a regular battle royal, even though like tag team stuff was on the line. One idea I've always had in my, if I was a creative, person, was same general idea. Maybe everybody starts in the ring for this version, but let's say like me and you were on different teams, but we were the last two people standing. The team of us gets the shot, even if we're from two different teams. Just the last two people standing. I always thought it would be an interesting concept. I could see why you don't, because you're, by the nature breaking up the tag teams that you have. But even just a one-off thing would be maybe like the two guys dump out each other's partners at the same time, and they have to force that decision. But I think that would be an interesting twist. But for what this was supposed to be, this is great. I hope we see it every year. If not now, like pick a show that you want to even center around this, and I think it'd be perfect.
I only had one gripe about this whole match.
Mm-hmm.
It felt long, bro.
It was long. It was 26 minutes. You had 15 teams, which is 30 people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it was a minute and a half between entrants, which I guess you could do a minute and trim it down a little bit. But yeah, by the nature, I mean, it's like a Royal Rumble in its very nature is going to stem at least like right near an hour. So this basically was half of that because it was the same amount of people, but half the amount of entrants. So it was very par for the course. But yeah, if this isn't going to be a bigger deal, you can't equate 26 minutes of your show to just like a fun battle royal. Like if this becomes an every year thing and it's like, teams at the bottom of the card can win a tag title shot from winning this, like I think then it would be worth it. But otherwise, yeah, it is a lot of time. It was let me double check before I say this. Yes, it was the longest one match on the card, including the main event. It beats it by like a minute. So your point is well taken. But if it does, again, make this a really important thing because I think it can be, and I think the situation worked. So yeah, more of this, please, because I had a lot of fun. And I don't know if I've officially said it. Ray Phoenix and Pac got the win. 2/3 of Death Triangle. Pentagon was in the ladder match that we'll get to. That's why he didn't team with his brother. But this is a cool twist because we've seen the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks plenty of times. Like AEW's first like 2 pay-per-views had that match, and then they fought a whole lot on Dynamite. So like this is it with a twist. It was like for that weird amount of time in 2002 when like Edge and it was Chris Jericho and Christian for the Un-Americans. The Hardys were still together, and like Bubba Ray had Spike Dudley, not Devon. It was just like the guys you knew, but it was just a nice, fresh little twist. Like it reminded me of that. Like this reminds me of like Spike Dudley, Bubba Ray, because it's like it's the same team. You just exchanging out one of the guys. So I thought that was pretty cool. Not that I would ever confuse Pac with Spike Dudley, but just the concept of this. Next up, we had the AEW Women's Title match. Shida defends against Ryu, and I'm gonna Rio Mizunami, I believe is how you say it. Mizunami, excuse me. I got that.
See, I'm happy I don't have to do all that because I would have butchered that too.
And we talked about New Japan last episode about the whole unification of the belts and stuff. Like I could talk belts all day, and I know a lot of that roster, but I can't just like rattle. Like I know the big guys, but I don't know every Japanese wrestler that's in there. So if I got it wrong, that A for effort. I think I did it right. This was solid. I think the thing with Riho in this is, if you followed the tournament on YouTube and you followed her rise through the Japan half of the bracket, you would probably feel like she had a shot to win. But like, unless, and we talked about this on Saturday too, like whoever won the Japan side when they got the finals, it was just logical that they should win because they're already here and they have to be here for 2 weeks before they can fly back. So you might as well put them in, the title match, get a pop a rating as they used to call it, or, steal a show, just give her a good opponent. Don't be surprised if she's on like Dark a time or two or Dynamite in the next week before she goes back. You might as well get use out of this talent while you have her here. And there was definitely a couple of times where she could have potentially won this, but Shida ends up getting the win. They both get attacked by a bunch of heels. Nyla Rose came out, Britt Baker, and a couple other, her buddy came out, and Thunder Rosa made the save. And I don't know if they did this on purpose, but every heel in this thing was wearing red. And then Thunder Rosa runs out in like baby blue. Like it was just, it was the best like subliminal messaging on here. Like if you can't tell who the good guy was, it's her.
Yep, I saw that, and I felt like popped at that too. I was like, everyone is wearing red.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And then, so this was like 15 minutes, no complaints there. I mean, you got to give your women's world champion time to compete. So like this, no issues there at all. Next match, however, this is the match that you should cut completely. Not there's anything wrong with it, but with the show this long, and with the Shaq episode, let's call it. I know it had a different, like, Crossroads, I think they called it, but for the Shaq episode, which is one of the bigger episodes of Dynamite ever, this should have been on that show, and this was Miro and Kip Sabian against the Best Friends team of Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Nothing wrong with this match. They jump him before the bell. They throw Chuck Taylor into like a door with like a small window on the top, and he kind of tries to get his arm up to block it, and his arm goes straight through the window, and he has this weird, like, he's gushing blood on like the top of his forearm. It's the weirdest place I've ever seen anybody bleed. And he's like, there was a lot of blood in the canvas. I think they probably like switched it out before the next match, but I even like the story here because Miro got to the point where he's like, I'm done with this. I'm tagging myself in. He like ran in the ring, kicked one of them, dragged Kip to the side so he could tag himself in, and then did his own hot tag. He did everything. He like bumped into Penelope Ford on the apron, knocked her off. He didn't even look back because he was just trying to win. I'm glad, the right team won. I got nothing against Best Friends, but Miro needs to start looking like that monster again. And I think he's going to get to the point where like Kip Sabian's the weak link and he'll cut bait with him. They might have a small feud that Miro definitely needs to win, and then he can be off to the races. So nothing wrong with this. This was 8 minutes. I'm not even saying it was that long, but it didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. It could have been on Dynamite last week. It could have been on the Fallout one on tomorrow by the time you guys hear this on Tuesday. Like, this match didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. And in a pay-per-view that was so time sensitive and so pressed for time, that 8 minutes could have gone maybe somewhere else. This is the one match that you could have just cut completely, I think.
Yeah, I felt like that too. I felt like the same way. They should have cut this one out. It should have been on a dark and not a dark, but a Dynamite episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or even on that Evolution or the new show.
Evolution, yeah.
Evolution.
Yeah, they could have been on like the first episode of that. That would have been. This could have made
been
the first episode of that. I think that would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been good because everyone likes Orange Cassidy. Everyone likes the Best Friends.
Yeah,
Miro is good. I mean, Kip Sabian probably only is a weak link. I'll put even Penelope Ford over Kip Sabian.
I think, and I got no beef with this person in particular. Actually, I'm a big fan of him, but Chuck Taylor might have been the weak link in this because Kip Sabian is good. They just haven't really used him enough. I don't think he's as over with the fans as Chuck Taylor is, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, I got you then. But again, nothing wrong with this either. It's just it didn't need to be here, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the next match too, Hangman Page and Matt Hardy, the big money match where the winner receives the loser's earnings for the first quarter of 2021. Very unique stipulation. I've never heard it said that way. Like, I'm gonna win your quarterly earnings. Like, what a weird way to go about it. But match was fine. The Dark Order came out. They did like an Adam Rose trust fall catch for Adam Page at the end to put him back on the apron so he can hit the buckshot lariat. This match was fine. This match was 14 minutes. It could have been 10, I think, and it do the same ending. And this match was gonna be a C+ match, a 3-star out of 5, no matter what they did, because just the story carried this match. It had nothing to do with I can't wait to watch Matt Hardy face Hangman Page. It was just, who's going to win all the money is basically all this was about. So you could have cut a good 5 minutes off of this too, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings. But it was good. He embraced the Dark Order after Hangman did, and I don't know if that means he's in the group. I don't think he wants to, as in character form. I don't think he's looking to be the leader or anything, and that's kind of what the Dark Order need at the moment. So he's at least he's friends with them now, which is better standing than they were. So this was fun. It could have just been a little shorter. I think it would have impacted it more if you just pick up the pace a little at the beginning. It would have made the match better overall.
Yeah, I think so. I think the same thing. I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the match in general. I like Hangman Page. He's probably one of my favorite stars they have over there on AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I could see a lot of me in him. I'm a drinker.
Yep, I feel that.
I'm a drinker too, and he just looks like he's just want to have some fun out there, man.
Yeah,
and I'm all for it.
And it's hard to remember because we've seen more AEW shows in the pandemic era than the pre-pandemic era at this point by a couple months even. But when he used to come to the ring in normal arenas and people would just hand him beers and he would just finish it by the time, he got fully to the ring, he would just grab them right out of fans' hands and start like drinking them and everything. And he was over, like, he's over now, but I think people might have forgot how over he was when we just had like full crowds of people that just loved seeing this guy. And he'd always make them write funny things on his like lower third when he came to the ring. I'll never forget the one. It was like Christmas time, and he goes, I don't know. It said on the thing, I don't know. Write something like Happy Yeehaw Holidays. LOL, JK, don't write that. The whole thing was written on his lower third. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So, no, when we do finally get crowds back, there's going to be a handful of people that are like, wow, like these people are all of a sudden all about Hangman. And it's not all of a sudden. We just don't remember how over he was with, with all the people. And I think what we're eventually going to get to, he will be the person to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW title. That is my prediction now. Mark it down. It's, what is it? March 8th. You guys will hear this on March 9th. I still think that's the case. It might be 6 months from now. It might not be Double or Nothing. It might be All Out. So whenever that is, towards the end of the year, November, I think it is. I think that's when it happens. And I do think they will eventually work back to, the first All Out was him losing it to Jericho to be the first champion, and that finally gets wrapped up was him beating Kenny Omega and winning the title. That's what I think will eventually happen. And he'll kick out of the One Wing Angel too, because nobody's done that in America. So that's another thing that'll happen. I'm just throwing predictions out left and right. I'm 0 for 1 on the show with AEW predictions now because I felt really strongly about that Sammy Guevara thing, but that didn't pan out. So we'll see what happens here. Next is the Face of the Revolution ladder match, which wins you a AEW Tnt Championship match, and it was truly, you had to, people were calling it a brass ring, but I know a Sonic the Hedgehog ring when I see one. That shit was straight out of Green Hill Zone. All right. And I loved it. It could have been smaller though. It was comically big. I don't know if I'm sure, the ring itself, like, it's one thing to just have a ring up there, but like this thing was massive.
Oh yeah, man! It looked like hemorrhoid balloons that you get when if you got hemorrhoids, it looked like one of those. It also looked like a Sonic the Hedgehog ring too. I was waiting for Sonic to come out.
Yeah, for real. I just think it could have been like thinner. It didn't need to be as like it looked like it could have saved a drowning person if you threw it to him. Like it really like and I had no like problem because the end of the day, like at like Double or Nothing, they did the giant ass poker chip, and like that was probably a little too big too, but it made sense. Double or Nothing, you get a poker chip, whatever. The ring is fine. Like if it's not going to be a belt, it's got to be something. But it was just comically big. I thought even when Scorpio Sky, spoilers, eventually won it, he's like holding it and hugging it, and it takes up his like whole torso. It's pretty ridiculous. But overall, this was fun. The mystery opponent ended up being All Ego Ethan Page, which people might not be super familiar with, and I'm not going to pretend I'm extremely familiar, but he was one half of the North, which is the longest reigning Impact Tag Team Champions of all time. He's very, charismatic. He's a heel. I don't think he will be immediately because people are just going to be happy to see him, but he had a good showing. I know him and Cody. When Cody first hit the Indies after leaving WWE, him and Ethan Page teamed a lot on the Indies, and they won a couple like indie tag team titles and stuff. So I'm sure that relationship came into play here. I would have pretty much been okay with anyone in this match winning. It was Scorpio Sky, Cody Rhodes, Pentagon, Lance Archer, Max Caster, and Ethan Page making his debut. But I was pulling for Scorpio Sky. I think the time is now, and I honestly think he needs to win the title on Wednesday from Darby Allin for two reasons. One, I think it's a great move for him, and as we'll get to after this, the street fight, it would make perfect sense that Darby is like banged up and stuff, and like Scorpio, this is a perfect time for Scorpio Sky to be able to like catch him. So before we jump to the street fight, I just think there was plenty of great memorable things. You had the border toss onto the ladder when Lance Archer was stuck in it. That was pretty crazy too. And this match was 23 minutes. Again, could you shave 2-3 minutes off of it? Maybe, but ladder matches never feel super long because there's so much going on. It's so hard to give six people a chance. So, could you shave a couple minutes? Sure. But overall, this was fine. the time wise, and this was very good and entertaining as a match itself.
It felt like it was just big move after big move after big move after big move. Like when Pentagon did the Paris, was it Paradise?
Trouble in Paradise.
Trouble. No. Yeah. The spike. When he spiked, I forgot who he spiked. He spiked someone off onto Cody, and the ladder was bridged.
Oh right. Oh it was on Cody, wasn't it?
It was okay.
The Destroyer,
yeah.
The Destroyer onto the ladder. Yeah, that was on the Cody, and then Cody was kind of out of the match for a while. He kind of went up to the ramp and came back, and a lot of people were like they were going to be bummed if Cody won because he kind of like left the match for a while. But I mean, Cody's been TNT champion twice already. I don't think that was ever in the cards for him to win. Plus, between he's got some nagging injuries, and I think Brandy's due in the next few months. Like he doesn't need to be the champion right now.
I think he's gonna be. I think he just got written off just yet. I think that was his write off.
Yeah, if not now, I think in the next Dynamite or two, they'll do something where that happens for sure. Yeah, you can just see it come. I think this was meant to be, and it still might. It could be, could be announced that he's taking some time away or whatever. But yeah, great match, and I'm happy Scorpio Sky won. I think that was the right move. You could have given it to Ethan Page, but when Brian Cage, we now Cage, Page, and automobiles. When Brian Cage debuted in the casino ladder match and won it, if Ethan Page had won, you're now setting the precedent that the mystery guy always wins. So you need to make sure early on, just because there's a mystery guy doesn't mean he's going to win this multi-man match. So like he would have been fine to win. Penta would have been cool. Max Caster would have been huge, but I think they're still trying to get them over as a tag team. So it makes sense to keep him as, he had a good showing and everything. His rap before the match was making Dr. Seuss references and all this. Yeah, it was good stuff. I like the guy. I like him a lot. I like Anthony Bowen too. I liked him as a team. They weren't a team when they got to AEW when it was Tony Khan's idea to put them together. So if they get split up at any point, I think they're both gonna be able to hold their own. But they're great. They're great as a tag team. I think too.
Hey,
so
fun fact.
Yeah,
he was one of the sisters of Bobby Lashley.
I did read that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. A lot of both those guys mentioned, Bobby Lashley and him, are in much different places than they were during that segment. So I think they're both much happier than they were then. Next up, we got the street fight between Darby Allin, Sting versus Team Taz in the form of Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Couple of things here. Sting's face paint was awesome. It was half his and half Darby's. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
This ended up being a cinematic match after all. I thought when Sting got powerbombed by Cage, that was their way of saying, no, this is gonna be a real thing.
Straight up match.
And
yeah.
I do understand it too, because this match was 13 minutes. It was fine. The intro actually took forever. It was cool, but Sting's driving in like a truck and Darby's skateboarding down the runway, and he hitches onto the truck and they drive in, and they're passing all these people in Sting masks and hoodies, and it was very cool. It almost would have made a better promo to lead into the match than the match itself. Team Taz shows up in this crazy green Lamborghini or whatever it was. I think 2.5 of this 13 minutes was that intro. So if you're looking to cut time, cut it right there. It was very interesting. It was well done. We're both camera guys. It was shot beautifully. I couldn't find a single thing cinematography wise that I'd have a problem with. And the drone shot down the hallway and everything was great. I almost think that the announcers shouldn't have been on this. It felt like you were watching a live stream, like you were watching someone's Twitch channel. Like they were just doing commentary over it.
I said the same thing. They should have made it feel like an actual movie, like how the others like how the Boneyard match was.
Yeah.
I felt like this match could have been like the Boneyard match if they didn't have the commentators on there.
Yeah, it would have been right up there.
I mean, it was nice to hear. It was nice to hear. It's always nice to hear Taz. It's always great to hear Taz. But it's like, why aren't you there?
I mean, if you would have just had all of them talk about it right before the match and then play it and then have them all react to it after, I think that would have been more powerful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they had the dark music and stuff, and every time the announcers would talk for like an extended amount of time, it would take you out of it. If they were just like, oh my God, here comes so-and-so. And if they would just left it at that, like, because like Hook and Powerhouse show up. Powerhouse Hobbs wearing a mask, right? Like, who else are going to be?
Why?
Who else is as big as you, man? Like, we know it's you. Plus, you're there with Hook. You're going to be like, why did you not coordinate? Either both wear a mask or don't, I think. But no, some of the stuff they did. Oh, one other small gripe. This is a street fight, and I understand they're in like an abandoned building, but why is there a ring in the abandoned building?
Hey, I said the same thing. Oh man.
But I mean,
that was too funny.
It's one thing. I think what they should have done, and I'm trying to remember which. They did this in Impact at one time when the Hardys were just getting like a run of the place. They basically started the match in the ring, and they fought to the back, and you could tell everything you were seeing was pre-recorded after that. And then they kind of came out for the finish. I think something like that might have worked. But again, the reason it ended up being this way is so they could set up for the barbed wire match. So
yeah.
And I will say, and I don't mean to take it this far, but like, this is Sting's first match, quote unquote. And there's people in the stands now. There's 1,300 people at this show. You don't think a couple hundred of them came to see Sting, and they didn't actually get to see Sting?
See Sting, yeah.
I mean, I get looked at by some people as like an AEW homer, but like I don't mind admitting when things, don't go right for what they do, and there's plenty more to that to come later on tonight. But this was great for what it was, and you almost wish it would have happened like a month earlier when there was like barely any fans and stuff. That I would have felt better about, because I did think that I'm like, damn, like we're an hour and a half from Jacksonville. What if we went wanting to see Sting, and we got this? Like, I'm glad I was home to watch it, because this was fantastic to watch. I watched it right here in this
home, yeah.
I thought it was great that way. But the coffin drop off the second story through Brian Cage that like sent them to the basement was something out of a video game. It was awesome. And then Sting getting the win on Ricky Starks was the perfect move. If he would have beat Brian Cage, I'm like, that's not as believable. Like, that dude's like 3 times his size. Like,
yeah,
it was almost not believable that Darby was able to take him out, but he did it with weapons. He did it with the environment. Like, it was passable. So yeah, he's now has one more win. Sting has one more win in AEW than he did in WWE already. So I do think now the next match, whether it be, I don't know, I would say if the Team Taz thing is over, that'd be fine. But like, his next match needs to be in a ring with somebody safe. You know what I mean? Like, give him Dustin Rhodes or something, like just like the safest guy you have on the roster, and actually give him a match in the ring, or give him, a cheap heel that he can just run in there, do this Stinger Splash, Scorpion Death Drop, another move or two, and just get it, like, let him play the hits basically. But his next match, as good as this was, his next match definitely needs to be in a ring.
Oh yeah, I believe you're right. It needs to be in a ring, because people want to see him actually like fight in the ring, not looking through a jumbotron.
Yeah.
Like, if I was there, I would have been upset, just because I gotta look at the jumbotron when I could be looking at the ring.
Yeah.
It would have been better. I felt like it would have been a lot better in the ring, but I understand like the reason why they did it at in cinematography. I can't talk either.
Yeah, easy for you to say.
I'm right there with you, bro.
Cinematographers that can't say cinematography definitely lead to
it's bad. That's bad.
But no, great stuff. I do think. Again, I wasn't there. I'm sure people were pissed the way that all went down. Again, 13 minutes. You could have trimmed it down by 2 just because of the intro of everything, if you wanted to. But if it's only 2 minutes, it's not worth trimming. Like I said, you take out the 8 minutes which is really more like 10 with entrances and the post game stuff. So that one tag match is really the only thing I would pluck completely. But that then leads us to the main event, the exploding barbed wire death match. Real quick, and I meant to bring this up before. I don't like death matches, and when I say that, I don't mean I don't like this. I don't like that they're called death matches, because like nobody actually dies. Like, an exploding barbed wire match gets the point across, right? It's not nobody's fighting to the death. And this is every promotion that's ever used that term. In Japan, I believe that, it's possible that somebody was gonna die. If in the past week or so, it's when this match was coming, you go and you try to watch, like, Terry Funk has been in these kind of matches. Mick Foley's been in these kind of matches against each other and against other people. And again, I mentioned Fire Pro Wrestling has this game mode and you can play it, and it's to the stuff on the outside and the rings and barbed wire and the explosions. It's the exact same thing. Again, check out Fire Pro Wrestling, and you could reenact this whole match if you wanted to. Maybe a little better at the end too, but but this before we get to the ending, because that's going to be a whole another can of worms. I thought this was really good. Well, first I'll say this: the ring should not have had ropes. A normal barbed wire match, they take the ropes down.
Yeah.
Although I was okay with, they did 3 sides of the ring, and this entrance they came in didn't have barbed wire. And really what that was for 90% of Kenny Omega's moveset is coming off the ropes. So he needed a set of ropes to run, I think. This was great. A lot of the early explosions looked great. And I think people have said, like, oh, if you slow down the replay, you can see the explosion comes like a millisecond before John Moxley hits the rope. And that might be true, but that wasn't how you were meant to view it. You were supposed to just, like, take it for what it is. And then the shot towards the end of the match with the barbed wire bat and the explosion on that looked amazing on TV. The paradigm shift to the outside on the barbed wire out there, as brutal as that looked, he hit, let's say there's 2 pallets. He hit pallet 2 and pallet 1 had the explosion. So I thought maybe they were supposed to hit that one and they overshot it. And then there was, for what this was, I mean, there's a reason there's never really been a death match in the Western world, basically. I mean, the closest thing, Cactus Jack and Triple H, Royal Rumble 2000. That was essentially America's version of one of these, because there was barbed wire, there was thumbtacks, there was no explosions, but they were in Madison Square Garden. They were inside. They weren't going to get, like, explosions like that. Before we get to everything else, Kenny Omega won, which was the right call, because John doesn't need to be champion again. This Kenny thing is going to go for a while. Overall, the match itself, I was very impressed with. It was as brutal as advertised. 25 minutes of the 30 allotted minutes, because after 30 minutes the time detonates, as they mentioned. So that's, they could have, this might have been the one instance here where you could have pushed it another little bit, or just kind of, the countdown wasn't on the screen the whole time. You could have, like, taken it down when there was 10 minutes left and put it back up in 2 minutes with 3 minutes to go. Nobody was timing it with the stopwatch, because you could tell when the Good Brothers came out to jump him afterwards, they had to waste a lot of time. They probably had to waste 2 extra minutes, because they basically had to burn a whole 5 minutes for the thing to go off. But before we get to what happened post match, what did you think of this?
The match by itself was great.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the spots was awesome. Like when Kenny Omega hit John Moxley with the, what's this finisher? The wing clip.
One wing angel.
One wing angel. Yeah.
On the chair. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one. The first one.
Mm-hmm.
When John Moxley, he couldn't kick out, so what he did was he hit the rope, and it started the explosion. Like, that was great. That was a great way to kick out, or to get out of the pin. I thought that was awesome.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a very creative thing, because again, nobody's ever kicked out of the one wing angel. That would have been a rope break. But I don't know if he, and you could spin this either way. Was he doing it out of reflexes to get to the ropes because it was there, or was he thinking about kicking to set off the explosion? And the one thing I would say too is, obviously we're going to talk about a malfunction later. That would have been even worse if he tried to kick that and it didn't explode. Imagine how much of a cluster that would have looked like. So as bad as it was, and we're going to get there, could have been worse, because that would have screwed the match itself. If you turn it off right after the match, you can be like, you know what? That was a solid, as far as death matches go, 3.5, 4-star death match, right? If you turn it off right after the match. So, I mean, things could have gone wrong in other areas that didn't.
Which is awesome. I'm happy that didn't. that paradigm shift too.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was Moxley was dumb for doing that. Just because if you look at it, Kenny Omega missed the whole platform.
Yeah, he might have like nipped it and on his way.
Yeah,
and
he probably
fell,
and it fell to the ground. Moxley landed inside, like literally on the platform. Like
he kind of landed
whole
between
body
the two of them.
in between both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And he just. Oh, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I feel his pain right now because that looks horrible.
My only other real nitpick there is, so they had those things set up on the three corners of the ring, the one that wasn't the ramp, and that was the only one they used. I thought they would maybe use the space, maybe because, like you said, Moxley might have got the brunt of that one. So maybe Kenny gets up before him, drags him over to the second one, and like straight suplexes him onto it. Like they had three of those set up, and they only used one. I thought I understand not using all three because that's a little too predictable. But I think using one more of those actually would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, you're right.
So then we get to, again, the Good Brothers come out. They handcuff Moxley. The purge siren goes off, which I actually thought was like, oh shit, because I almost forgot. Because again, in Fire Pro, which is where I'm getting a lot of my knowledge from this, you win the match is over. And granted, if you win the match at 29, 30, and 30 seconds, yes, the loading screen will still be there and you can see the timer. And if it hit 30 minutes, everything explodes. But when you beat it with 20, when the match ends in 25 minutes, I didn't know that the timer, that was still a thing, that the timer still had to be, couldn't be disarmed for whatever reason, essentially. So that alone was a plot hole twist. Before the bad stuff happened, I'm like, okay, but why? And I get they're going to beat him up, they're going to handcuff him so he can't leave. And, yeah, I didn't really think that was going to be part of the story, that they had 5. And again, maybe if he beats him in 28 minutes instead, and it's just so quick a time, it's like, oh crap, nobody disabled the bomb. That would have actually made the story a little better, I think, too. But the fact that it took 5 whole minutes, it was like nobody can just unplug the thing or whatever they got to do. I think that was this first step into what ended up happening here, I think.
Yeah. I would have only known if the time was still going on. If I didn't hear JR talking about how they still told JR and Excalibur and Tony Schiavone talking about that it's still the time is still going. The time is still going.
Yeah.
If I didn't know that, if I didn't hear that, I would have never known what was coming up next.
I almost turned it off. I figured the show was.
I thought I thought the show was over. Yeah, I thought they're gonna beat him up a little bit more, and then then he's gonna leave.
Maybe they they pull one of those barbed wire wrapped boards in the ring and they do a magic killer onto him or something. Maybe just end it like that or whatever. And I've gone back since last night and I've seen examples of how some of these matches have ended with so close to the detonation. And there was one with Terry Funk and he beats the guy 1, 2, 3, and then there's 3 seconds before the bomb. So there's nobody can get out. And Terry grabs the referee, puts him underneath him and the guy, and he covers everybody. And the explosion is massive. I don't know. Have you seen the clips of this working the way it was supposed to?
No, I've never seen.
All right, I'll have to send it to you. But he grabs the ref who was in one of those hazmat suits, and he covers everybody, and the thing just lights up the sky. And then another one where the guy had beaten Terry Funk, and he's slapping him in the face, trying to wake him up to get him out. And then he tries pulling him by his hair and he's just dead weight. And then the guy covers him up so that he can do the explosion. So the precedent of somebody covering somebody before the death, it's been happening. It's almost like reenacting a famous thing from the if there'd never been a ladder match in Japan and they tried to reenact Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels, the precedent has been set for what this was supposed to be. And when Eddie Kingston ran out there, I was so enamored because I'm I know they're longtime friends. They're not really friends right now, but Kingston might have been the only guy in that locker room that knew what was about to happen in kayfabe, right? No one else has been around for these. He's been everywhere. He's done a lot of things. I did feel like he could have dragged him out of the thing,
I said the same thing.
And then he covers him up and even without knowing the precedent, that was still like you could see how that would be something you would do. And as badass as Kingston is, it's his personality still merits him doing that.
Yeah.
And the explosion happens or doesn't happen really. The sparkler part is what's confusing me, because what was that supposed to be is my issue.
I have no idea. I
Like,
thought Gilbert was coming up.
yes, yeah, I mean, the jokes have been made, Gilbert and everything else, and then the one, I can't even call it big, the one medium like puff of smoke with an explosion happens, and I am willing to bet that if you were in the arena, because that smoke comes up from like that side, so for the first couple of seconds, that probably looked okay to you if you were in the stands, but we could see from where we were how far away that smoke was coming from. And the one thing I've gathered is people are almost more upset the way Kingston had to sell it than the malfunction, because clearly it was a malfunction. At least we think. I honestly think we're going to learn more about this on Wednesday. We're going to learn more about this on Dynamite. Something is going to be said, I think. So we'll see. But my defense to Kingston is he was sitting there with his head tucked down. He didn't know how good or bad that explosion was. I think Moxley might, because he's covering him, but he can like look up. I know this is great for like audio listeners, but like he was in a position that he probably could have seen how lame the explosion was. I don't think Kingston was. He's there with his head tucked down. He might have been like, that wasn't as loud as I expected it to be. But like he kind of had to sell it regardless, because he had no way of knowing if it was bad or not, I think. So any crap people are giving Kingston, I think, is very unwarranted.
Yeah. I can tell. Let me tell you how I would
approach tell me.
This whole ending. Okay, so yeah, you have Eddie Kingston come out. He's trying to drag him Moxley out. He can't drag him because he's dead weight, which I understand that. But I also understand he could have picked him up if he really had to.
He could drag him by his feet even under the bottom rope. Yeah, there's weight.
And you see the timer going down to 3, 2, 1, and then the camera just fades to black, right? Mm-hmm. And then you just hear this big bang, and you see a whole bunch of smoke come up. All right, then the lights come back on, and you see a whole bunch of smoke just all around. And you see fire and stuff, and that would have made it better for the viewers. Probably that made it better for the viewers at home. It may have been terrible for the viewers in the stands, but it would have probably been a lot better. Or even just having the ring collapse.
That's the one note collapse that I've been seeing that I agree with, because even if the explosion wasn't what it was supposed to be, the ring collapsing would have at least given you the effect that you're looking for. Which is, I think there's two different lines of thinking here. People that don't like AEW essentially, and why you want any wrestling company to fail, I'll never know. But those people are out there that don't want AEW to succeed. I don't think they set it up to look like that because they thought that was good. I think something didn't happen that should have. I don't think they looked at that and was like, yep, that's good enough. I've seen, Twitter's a nasty place sometimes, but like somebody saying like, oh, Tony Khan skimped on the amount of pyro. I'm like, do you really think a dude that owns 2 professional sports teams skimped on the pyro bill? Like, I don't know. He wasn't like, nah, I'm not going to pay that much for it. Like, clearly, I feel something didn't go off that was supposed to. And there's been talks of like the fire marshal not allowing the. I mean, the amount of pyro that went off for other guys' entrances shows me that I don't think it had anything to do with that. And again, I'll send you the. If I never thought it was going to compare to the stuff we've seen in Japan, because that stuff happens in like soccer fields. The stuff goes, nuclear, goes 20 feet in the air. Like it is a sight to behold if you haven't seen it. Even if that matches aren't your thing. For people listening, like jump to the end of one and just see the explosion. You don't have to watch like all the violence or whatever, but like it really is a sight to behold. I mean, there's only been a handful of these ever, and I think the last one was like 1995, at least on the mainstream. But I think it comes down to something didn't go the way it was supposed to. And to give Moxley credit, I don't know if you saw this video. After it goes off the air, he somewhat diffused the whole situation, because he said, Kenny Omega's a tough son of a bitch, but he can't build a bomb for shit. And like the crowd laughed at least. And I'm like, again, it's nobody's fault. And even at this point, Kingston is really still selling it. He's like propped up on a referee, and like his eyes are kind of closed. Like people are making, it's like, did he pass out from fear, which wouldn't have, wouldn't really fit Kingston's story or his personality or whatever. So overall, the Kingston overselling, if you will, I think is getting more shit than the actual mishap. And it is a shame because this was a very good death match for what it is. And it's a shame that people are probably not going to remember that this is the show that Sting had his first match, and people that like Ethan Page aren't going to remember that he was there. They're not going to remember, the Young Bucks Inner Circle, which this might be the beginning of the end of the Inner Circle. This might be the crack that starts like pulling them apart. A lot of great stuff, a lot of memorable, a lot of either great story moments or even great matches, and sometimes both happen on the show. But that this is always what this is going to be remembered for, I think.
Yeah, I said the same thing, and to be honest with you, I thought it was a great show.
Yeah.
Until that moment, and it took me out of it. Like that, just that being that bad took me completely out of the whole show.
But like a lot of reviewers that I watch, to get ideas for content for even our show, like so many of them are like, this was a 4 out of 4.5, 5 pay-per-view, but that moment brought it down to like 3.5. Or like,
yeah, I've seen people say like it was a B plus, and it just with that happening, it dropped it down to a D. I was like,
yeah. I mean, I remember I don't, not that he needs any publicity, but like Brian Zane, he had this match at like a 4-star death match, and he literally put it down to like 1 because of this, which was a little harsh. But again, this is what you're going to remember at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Bully Ray always.
You're bringing everyone home with that crappy finish. Yeah. I
Bully,
want to see what Jim Cornette got to say about this.
oh my God, man. You don't, I mean, I listen to him enough as is. I can't reach him over there, but I got my little Jim Cornette figure on my desk over here, tennis racket and all. But, Bully Ray has this quote, which I think he got from Vince McMahon, but I hear it more through him. It's, people aren't going to remember who won. People aren't going to remember who lost, but they are going to remember how you made them feel. And I think this is one of those quotes, because like if Moxley wins the match and wins the title and the Good Brothers, jump him and the same thing happens, doesn't make it any better. So yeah, that sucked, but our guy won the title back. People still aren't going to remember it that way if that was the case. So again, if you don't like AEW, you've had a really fun past 24 hours. You've been moving your fingers on the keyboard as fast as they can go, and I hope you enjoy your time, because I mean, this is not something that's gonna. I don't think we're gonna get another death match, which I'm totally fine with. This is not something I need more of. I think it's, and revisionist history they'll eventually just kind of tell the story of the match, and they'll slowly not even get to the Eddie Kingston stuff. And I mean, is this any worse than Paul Heyman not being able to undo a handcuff key? Is this any more difficult than Randy Orton setting a obvious mannequin on fire that was supposed to be the Fiend? Like, I didn't shit on any of that, so I'm not going to shit on this either. Like, things happen. The difference is this was what we think was a mistake, and those other things weren't. Those were, well, the Paul Heyman thing was a mishap, but like the Fiend getting set on fire wasn't. Without, even with this accounted for, this is still a 4 out of 5 show, I think. And if that didn't happen, I'm not quick to give up like 5-star shows, but it knocked it down like half a star. It probably would have been a 4.5 to me, and now it's a 4, which I think is fair. Because it's the end of the show. If this happened in the middle of the show, which I don't know how you would be able to top this match, so that's why you don't do it. But if this happened in the middle of the show, you might be able to forgive it by the end. But because it was the end of the show, I think a half-star knock is fair.
True. Well, I guess for me, it was already a 4 show for me. At least a 4 show for me, and then knocking this knocked it down to at least a 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's not nothing, as I like to say. You can't totally disregard it, but like what happened in this match doesn't get to affect like your rating for Darby Allin and Sting's match, or the ladder match, or the tag team battle royal, which again, how has no one ever done one of those before? It was a tag team Royal Rumble. It was genius. Do more of these. Other companies do more of these. But it doesn't, it shouldn't really affect how you feel about the rest of the card, but weirdly it will affect how you view the show as a whole. But again, you guys should hear this on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to Wednesday a little more this week, because we got to I think we'll get some form of explanation. I think they did as much damage control as they could like the night it happened, like with the Dean Ambrose, with the John Moxley promo, and the Tony Khan was like, well, Kenny built a dud. He's not a rocket scientist. He's a wrestler. Like, he built this thing himself, and it didn't work, which was fine to come up with on the spot. The one thing that could have saved this, if someone was fast thinking in the back, once the dud happened, if Kenny and the the Good Brothers and Don Callis, they come back out and they start laughing, and they're like, did you really think I'd put a bomb in this thing? Like, what if I was still in the ring? I don't want to deal with that. If someone would have thought about it quick enough, we'd be thinking out of it a lot differently. That would have been, and we would have never known that it was a dud. We could have thought that was their plan all along. It would have been that simple. Who knows where they went? I'm sure Kenny wasn't 100% at that moment. Maybe he was getting checked out. But that actually would have saved it, I think.
I think so too. And I have a feeling that they might try to say that later on, like on Wednesday.
I think if they can't come up with anything else, you got to pull that out of your hat on Wednesday.
Yeah, but I wouldn't like that. I mean, I would rather them do that then right there in the moment, because it would have made more sense of it.
Yeah, it won't have the same effect.
Be talking. It's not gonna have the same effect if they decide to come up with say, oh, it was part of the storyline type thing. That's the reason why. That's the reason why I didn't go off. Kenny didn't want to kill himself out there. That's the reason why it was a dud. It won't hit the same way.
No,
unless they did it in the beginning or at the actual match.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll look to see what happens on Wednesday. They got a couple other things announced. The TNT title match, Scorpio Sky, and what's left of Darby Allin, which that's something they really need to play up. I think they need to I think the title should switch. Not that that's no dig on Darby Allin, but I think this would be a good time for it. They got a couple other things planned, so tune in Dynamite not just because of to get your explanation, but there should be some good matches on there. And from what I understand, it should be a pretty solid week on wrestling for NXT too. So before we get out of here, I know we've been at this for a while. It was a long card. Plus, we wanted to talk about Shaq and Tully. So before we get out of here, though. NXT also has a pretty good week of wrestling coming up. So, Don, what can we expect on Wednesday?
All right, so Wednesday we got Finn Balor versus Adam Cole, which that's right there. Give me that, please. Let me get that.
Oh, yeah.
All of that. Then
you think there's any shot of title change? What do you, just real quick?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I got a little bit more about that. Mm-hmm. And then Io Shirai versus Tony Storm is also on Wednesday as well. And then William Regal got two big announcements. I think one of them is going to be about the Tuesday night thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I know the other one. Not to cut you off because I don't like to do that. I've heard rumors of NXT Women's Tag Team titles is what I'm hearing. Second one is.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm also thinking okay, what happens if they decide, hey, we're going to have both men and women's titles defended at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that could definitely be it too.
Because they did say this will change the landscape. I mean, last year I felt like it changed the landscape because it was Charlotte versus Rhea for the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a good move too for the titles because before I say that fully, it's a good move if you start investing in women's tag teams. Because there's barely any of them now, and that's why the women's tag titles on the main roster feel okay. Because already right now, the two top teams were thrown together from main eventers. So if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna have two sets of these, you need to start investing in women's tag teams. I mean, you broke up the one true one you had in the Iconics. So
in the NXT they got quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They got Amber Moon and Shotzi.
Yeah,
we got The Way with Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae.
Mm-hmm.
You got Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter.
So that's good then. So they've already laid the ground.
They got some teams in the works. They probably could use maybe a couple more.
Mm-hmm.
But you got women for this. You got a lot of women on that.
Yeah, roster, so you can definitely mix. Do like the Acclaimed where Max Caster and Anthony Bowen, they weren't a team when they got there, but you can put them together, give them a common theme, and there you go. You got a new team right there. So yeah, no, I definitely am interested in the like you said, Adam Cole could potentially win the title back. I mean, because he could feud with any of the Undisputed Era. I think it would be Roddy at this point.
I think it's gonna. I think if Adam Cole wins, he's gonna go against O'Reilly.
Well, I mean that makes sense. I just didn't know if they're like doing a thing where he's out of action for a little bit first. So maybe it might be Roddy first and then O'Reilly. So something like that, you know?
Yeah, it
so,
could. I wouldn't be mad either or.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just trying to figure out where's Bobby Fish at, yo.
Where
Bobby Fish?
When the whole thing went down with them, I remember I had to text you. I'm like, is Bobby Fish hurt? Like, I don't like what is going on here. And if the Tuesday thing, we talked about it a little bit. I'll just reiterate. That's a win for everybody. Like, I love watching AEW, but I hate having to ask Don what happened on NXT. I want to just know what happens on NXT. And when I have the free time, I usually watch the Hulu version the next day, but I don't always. But if it was just live on Tuesday, I could have it on the way I watch like Raw and SmackDown, even if I'm doing other shit, I can like have it on the TV and know what's going on. So if the move is Tuesday, I'm gonna be very excited for it because that way I can watch NXT also.
Bro, it's a done deal, bro. I think that's gonna be that's definitely gonna be one of that announcement on Wednesday.
And they're also gonna package this in a way that so CBS is getting rid of CBS Sports Channel, which is where a lot of NBC Sports Channel, which is where a lot of NHL content goes. So the main reason they're gonna say, and I don't doubt this isn't part of it, NHL Hockey Night in America, which is Wednesday, it's like the equivalent of Thursday Night Football, I would say, for the NFL, that's gonna move to USA in that time slot. So you could say like AEW is going to be going against the NHL Game of the Week, which shouldn't be scoffed at. I'm sure they pulled pretty good ratings too. But that's the TV station reason for this happening. It's not just they're not getting the ratings because AEW, let's move them. I don't think they would care enough to move it if that was the only reason. So I do, if you do wonder, it is a lot to do with the NHL.
No, yeah, that's what I've been telling everyone. A lot of people, you got their AEW stands that NXT they couldn't hang, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. It's not because of AEW.
No,
it's not because of AEW.
It's partly, but it's not the reason they're moving.
It's not because like they would. I felt like they would have stayed if NBC Sports was still there. They would have been still on Wednesdays, regardless. They would have never moved because. I feel like the only reason why NHL got more clout is because NHL actually draws ratings. I didn't even notice that. I didn't really notice that at all.
Yeah.
Well, they be at least getting like 2 million.
Yeah, if it's like if it's a good game, like I don't claim to be like a hockey expert, but if it's like Bruins and Flyers, like if it's like two like powerhouse teams, like they'll pull those big numbers for sure. But yeah, we'll talk more about it when it becomes official. It does seem like it's a done deal, but I think by next episode we'll know what's going on there. And we will also be doing our I got my list down. I think Donovan's got his too. We're gonna do our comparing promotions to college football conferences. That's gonna be on the next episode. And of course the fallout of everything from NXT and AEW and everything else. Raw is actually on right now as we were recording this because this will be out Tuesday morning. So I got to catch up on that. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I know this was kind of a long one, but we had a lot to talk about. So hopefully we get more answers from AEW. It's going to be a great showing from NXT on Wednesday. And we'll see you guys next week. This is the Wrestle Report, and we'll see you next time.